Are you currently exhausted from chasing a version of personal happiness that always seems just slightly out of your reach? In our modern, hyper-connected society, we are constantly bombarded with a very specific and relentless cultural message. We are repeatedly told that we must aggressively maximize our daily pleasure, continuously advance our professional careers, and accumulate as much physical comfort as humanly possible. We buy the latest digital productivity tools to save brief moments of time. We carefully curate our social media profiles to appear perpetually joyful. We read countless self-help books promising the ultimate secret to a thoroughly stress-free life. Yet, despite experiencing this unprecedented level of global material comfort, an overwhelming number of us wake up every single morning feeling a profound, unexplainable sense of internal emptiness. We diligently check off all the arbitrary boxes that our modern society deems necessary for success, but the promised feeling of deep, lasting fulfillment never actually arrives at our doorstep, and it is incredibly frustrating to do everything supposed right, according to the rules, and still feel like a hollow shell at the end of a long workday. We are inevitably faced with unavoidable personal struggles, whether it is a difficult romantic breakup, a sudden crushing career setback, or the painful and untimely loss of a loved one. Our modern, fragile pursuit of shallow happiness completely shatters into pieces. We are left completely unequipped to mentally handle the heavy and unavoidable burden of real human suffering. We desperately try to numb the sharp pain with endless digital distractions and mindless scrolling, quietly hoping the deep anxiety will simply disappear on its own. But what if our fundamental societal goal has been entirely wrong this entire time? Well, what if aggressively chasing temporary happiness is the exact psychological mechanism that is making us so deeply miserable in the long run? Tonight on BookDream, we are going to explore a completely different, highly profound perspective on how to confidently navigate the painful, chaotic realities of our human existence. We will discover together why deep meaning, rather than shallow pleasure, is the only true anchor capable of holding us steady during the absolute darkest storms of our lives. To truly understand the profound psychological difference between chasing fleeting happiness and discovering deep, unshakable meaning, we must gently turn the pages of one of the most powerful and harrowing books of the 20th century. Published in 1946, Man's Search for Meaning was written by a brilliant Viennese psychiatrist and neurologist named Viktor Frankl. But it is crucial to understand that this is not just another academic clinical textbook written from the safety and warmth of a comfortable university office. Frankl forged his profound psychological theories in the absolute darkest, most unforgiving and hostile environment in modern human history, the brutal Nazi concentration camps of the Holocaust. In 1942, Frankl, along with his pregnant wife, his brother, and his parents, was violently arrested and deported to the Theresienstadt ghetto, and eventually transported to the infamous death camp of Auschwitz. Upon arrival, he was entirely stripped of his respected academic identity, his prized life's work manuscript was confiscated and destroyed, and his humanity was reduced to a mere number permanently tattooed onto his arm. Ultimately, Frankl lost his entire family to the horrific camps, save for one single sister, Anoyette, as he somehow survived through freezing winter temperatures, severe daily starvation, and the constant, looming threat of the gas chambers. Frankl made a profound and life-altering clinical observation. As a quietly observing psychiatrist, he noticed that the prisoners who managed to survive the longest under these impossible conditions were not necessarily the most physically robust, the wealthiest, or the youngest. Ones who endured the unendurable were the specific individuals who retained a deep, burning sense of future meaning. One man managed to survive purely because of his intense, unyielding desire to finish publishing a series of incomplete scientific books. Another survived against all odds because of his profound, desperate love for his surviving child, who was waiting for him safely in a foreign country. A prisoner lost their inner why when they finally decided that their immense suffering had absolutely no point and their future held no promise whatsoever. Their physical and mental deterioration followed almost immediately. Out of this incomprehensible darkness and tragedy, Frankl formalized logotherapy, a respected psychological school of thought based entirely on the premise that the primary motivational force of any individual is to find meaning in their life. He boldly theorized that human beings are not driven primarily by the shallow pursuit of biological pleasure, as Sigmund Freud previously suggested, but by the fundamental and powerful will to meaning. At the very core of Frankl's striking and enduring philosophy lies three incredibly profound insights that have the immediate power to entirely reshape how we view our modern, everyday struggles. Very first insight is that you fundamentally cannot happiness directly. Happiness is absolutely not a physical destination that you can simply navigate toward on a map, nor is it a tangible, shiny object you can purchase in a high-end store. Frankl famously wrote that happiness cannot be aggressively pursued. It must strictly ensue. It must organically happen as the unintended, natural side effect of your personal, quiet dedication to a cause much greater than yourself, or as the beautiful byproduct of fully surrendering yourself to care for another person. When we obsessively focus our mental energy on trying to be happy, we inadvertently place an immense amount of suffocating, toxic pressure on our daily emotions, turning a natural human feeling into a highly stressful performance metric. And the second major insight, perfectly captured by a famous historical quote from the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, which Frankl frequently cited while suffering in the freezing death camps: "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any hoe." In the practical context of our daily lives, this simply means that deep human endurance is directly tied to a sense of overarching purpose. If you know exactly why you are working a grueling, exhausting 60-hour-a-week job, perhaps to securely provide for your young children or to eventually fund a deeply meaningful creative project, the physical exhaustion becomes entirely bearable. Bodily suffering is no longer considered just random, chaotic pain. It beautifully transforms into a necessary and highly meaningful sacrifice. However, if you are dutifully doing that exact same grueling job purely to buy a slightly nicer luxury car that you do not genuinely care about, the resulting hollow stress will rapidly collapse your fragile mental health. The third, and perhaps the absolutely most powerful insight derived directly from the book, is Frankl's bold, unyielding assertion about the ultimate human freedom. Noted it in his writings that in the camps, the cruel, armed guards could rapidly take away everything physical from a helpless prisoner. They aggressively stripped away their warm clothes, their personal health, their beloved family members, and eventually their very physical lives. But there was one fundamental, invisible thing that could never be stolen by any human force. Frankl movingly wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." This is a staggering, life-altering realization for any reader. In any difficult personal situation, no matter how objectively terrible, painfully unfair, or completely paralyzing it may deeply seem, you possess an unbreakable, quiet inner sanctuary. You permanently retain the sovereign, divine human power to decide exactly how you will spiritually and emotionally respond to the dark crisis directly in front of you. So, how do we practically apply this heavy, profound Holocaust survival philosophy to the relatively mundane, quiet struggles of our modern, everyday lives? Finding your deep life meaning does not necessarily require you to suddenly quit your corporate job, sell all your earthly possessions, and move to an isolated, silent monastery deep in the snowy mountains. According to the foundational principles of logotherapy, profound meaning can be reliably discovered in three very distinct, highly accessible ways right where you currently stand. The first way is through actively creating a work or diligently doing a noble deed. This is the enduring, quiet meaning permanently found in your daily craftsmanship, your creative hobbies, or your dedicated professional work, provided you choose to view it as a meaningful contribution to the fragile world rather than just a shallow, necessary mechanism to mechanically print a monetary paycheck. And the second distinct way to discover deep meaning is through experiencing something profoundly beautiful or deeply encountering another human being. This is the undeniable meaning permanently found in pure, unselfish, quiet love. It is the deep internal resonance you suddenly feel when listening intently to a beautifully composed classical symphony, walking slowly alone through a dense, silent pine forest, or fully looking without judgment into the eyes of someone you deeply care about and truly recognizing their unique, completely irreplaceable human essence. And the third and undeniably most difficult to find human meaning is through our carefully chosen attitude toward unavoidable, fundamentally unchangeable suffering. This is an avenue strictly reserved for the tragic situations we simply cannot temporarily fix with money or time. When you face an aggressive terminal illness, the permanent, heartbreaking loss of a loved family member, or a complete, devastating financial collapse, you surprisingly have an opportunity to fulfill the absolute deepest, most honorable form of human meaning possible. You can actively choose to bear your heavy, painful cross with undeniable dignity, quiet grace, and unyielding courage. Make no mistake, if your immediate suffering is easily avoidable, the most sensible thing to do is to thoughtfully remove the root cause immediately. If the heavy suffering is genuinely unavoidable and permanently locked in, logotherapy gently teaches us that we are directly challenged by the universe to bravely change ourselves. When we are no longer fundamentally able to change an unfair external situation, we are firmly and permanently challenged to deeply change who we internally are. As we rapidly approach the quiet end of tonight's deeply reflective journey, I want to gently leave you with one final, deeply paradigm-shifting thought from Dr. Frankl's enduring legacy. Whenever his deeply depressed psychiatric patients would sit quietly in his Vienna office and sadly complain that they simply expected absolutely nothing more from their difficult lives, Frankl would gently but firmly correct their perspective. He would softly tell them that it fundamentally did not matter what we vaguely and selfishly expected from life, rather what life specifically and urgently expected from us. Life is continuously actively questioning us every single passing day and every single waking hour. Our ultimate answer to the universe must not consist merely of empty philosophical talk and passive meditation, but of right, deliberate action and highly honorable conduct. And if you are currently feeling deeply lost, emotionally exhausted, or heavily burdened by the chaotic, crushing weight of the modern world, please gently stop aggressively demanding that the universe hand you an easy, painless path to superficial happiness. Instead, bravely pause and quietly ask yourself, fragile, meaningful project in this world is currently waiting for my specific hands to build it? Who exactly around me is quietly begging for my specific, undivided, and unselfish love? And when I am unexpectedly and inevitably faced with profound personal tragedy I cannot change, what noble, unbreakable attitude will I proudly and consciously choose to adopt? Stop frantically and anxiously searching for life's hidden meaning as if it were a physical, tangible object buried under a random rock. Human meaning is ultimately something you must actively build, day by difficult day, through the quiet, unyielding dignity of your personal daily choices. Thank you so deeply for intentionally spending this quiet, highly reflective moment with us here tonight at BookDream. If Viktor Frankl's timeless, hard-earned wisdom deeply resonated with your tired soul tonight, please gently click the subscribe button below and quietly share these profound psychological insights with someone who might desperately need a steady anchor today. We will be patiently waiting right here for you next week, ready to thoughtfully unpack another life-changing piece of literature. May you successfully find your deep, personal why, and may it safely and securely carry you through any future storm.